As many of you will be aware, in the past few weeks, the British government has gone through a period of massive change similar to that of that gangly moustache boy from Big Mouth.
Sir Andrew Glauberman, at your service.
Following the failure of Boris as a Lord Commander of our sinking ship of an economy, Liz Truss stepped in and set fire to it. Announced a plan that would make said ship worthless in less than 6 months, and subsequently steered it into whichever obstacle she thought would best send us to a watery grave. Fortunately, prior to becoming fully submerged in the icy depths, this ship was boarded by a billionaire with severe drug dependency.
I'm a coke addict, total coke addict.
And because of this addiction, he's had to take on a number of aliases around the world, known formerly in America as
Sunak, go figure.
Hilarious. It also just so happens that his personal wealth is almost twice the size of the guy whose face will soon be on all of our money. Safe to say, a man of the people. Anyway, I digress. How do we get here? What were all the cock-ups? And more importantly,
what on earth is going on in the House of Commons?
To answer this question, I need to take you back to a late summer's morn of July 2019. The birds were chirping, the children were singing, and Boris Johnson was hiding in a fridge.
He's gone into the fridge.
This because it was known to aides around him that if he was let loose to the public, he'd begin a child-specific rampage fueled by his love for Peppa Pig.
Peppa Pig world is very much my kind of place.
As it happens, this was a day before Boris won a landslide victory for the Conservatives with a promise to deliver Brexit. Following which, he began to ferociously inflict his unhinged will onto the unassuming British public. And whilst Brexit has been a roaring success, raising the cost of living by £870 per household and hampering our exports, Johnson's management of COVID-19, which hit our shores in January 2020, put this spectacular feat to shame. From early 2020 to late 2021, Boris sporadically caged us in our homes, leaving us sorely reliant on the witty banter of the daytime TV stars of our generation, like David Dickinson from Bargain Hunt,
Bobby Dazzler,
and Martin Roberts from Homes Under the Hammer.
Congratulations. Tell me where you wanted to buy the flat.
And whilst their razor-sharp wit somewhat stood the test of time, the remarks on how the blue team won, even though both teams hadn't made a profit, eventually fell on deaf and really fucking bored ears. And whilst I longed to be in the fresh air to quell my boredom, Boris had imposed a maximum daily exercise allowance of 1 hour. A real home run for a government fighting a virus that was significantly worse for the unfit. Needless to say, I became violently depressed. Fortunately, Boris the Magician had one last trick up his sleeve to pull me out of my rut, and decided to bring the concerto of cock-ups to an exciting finale, bestowing upon the British public a flurry of ever-changing traffic light systems, which, if ever released onto our high streets, would have successfully taken out the entire British epileptic community. And then some time passed, and in early December it emerged that illegal parties were held in Downing Street amidst the peak of lockdown Britain. In response, Boris raided a home in Liverpool with a SWAT team. Unperturbed by the potential for Boris to raid all of the homes in Britain to find them all, leaks of Partygate continued over the festive season. And because of this, Boris resigned in July, facing mounting pressure from the British public who now hated him. The next self-flagellator to grab the bull by the penis was Liz Truss.
We coordinated international allies to call out Ukraine.
And whilst we were made promises of pork markets and foreign lands,
I'll be in Beijing, opening up new pork markets.
all that was delivered was the death of our monarch, market chaos, and a distinct lack of overseas markets centred around pork.
That is a disgrace.
And whilst Liz Truss underdelivered on saturating the UK market with pig flesh, she completely nailed choosing her cabinet, picking people not based on competency, but whether or not they helped her to become PM, with Charles Walker explaining the situation perfectly.
I've had enough of talentless people putting their tick in the right box, not because it's in the national interest, but because it's in their own personal interest to achieve ministerial position.
After appointing the cabinet, the Queen died. And following closely behind, Kwasi tried to kill the economy, launching a nuclear attack on markets through his announcement of the mini-budget in late September. This sent the value of the pound tumbling to its lowest level since 1990, and the cost of government borrowing skyrocketing as lenders began to charge greater interest on money lent to the government, with the market viewing this budget as, quote, fucking stupid. To help stem these rising interest rates, the Bank of England used their magic money tree to buy £65 billion worth of bonds from the government. This is a process known as quantitative easing, so if you already know what this is, feel free to skip ahead. If you didn't skip ahead, this is a thank you for sticking around from none other than Danny Malin of Rate My Takeaway.
back on the road again. So, it's just a quick message from me. I just want to say thank you guys for sticking around. It really means the world to me. Alright, I know that quantitative easing is boring and that you are all the real OGs for wanting to see it through. Alright, and when you go out for that takeaway, put Toad Knacker Cracker away.
The reason quantitative easing works is because bonds have two values: a market value, which someone can buy, and a value in which the bond will return in X amount of years. By buying bonds, the Bank of England increases the demand and drives up the price. At this higher price, those who buy the bonds will get a lower return on their money when X amount of years has passed. In other words, they'll get a lower interest rate. After this disaster, Liz Truss meets the new king who verbally assaults her. Sacks the guy that bent over the economy and said, "How's your father?"
And you'll be Chancellor and Liz Truss will be Prime Minister this time next month.
Absolutely 100%. I'm not going anywhere.
Kwasi Kwarteng has been sacked.
And shortly after, in late October, resigns after a motion of no confidence, all whilst failing to outlast a withering lettuce. The new election race was won by Sunak, the only person to receive enough backers to be considered for the role. Whilst Rishi seems to be off to a cautiously good start, with the value of the pound rallying back to its highest level since before Liz Truss' mini-budget, opinion polls still show an extreme favour for Labour over Conservatives in a general election. And although general elections aren't until 2025, if something doesn't change quickly, then public discontent will grow to a level which will push out Conservatives for the foreseeable future. Right now, Rishi is the Conservatives' last hope for redemption, and the future of the party is on his shoulders. This has been Dumbed Down. Goodbye.